We are starting, and we are live. We are live. Hello, Bruce. What are you doing out there? You must
Sure.
be. You must have just gotten home, and you still need to.
That's where it's safe is out there. Well,
Okay,
not outside
probably
out,
needs to,
there, but out there.
Decompress from work still.
Come and join us. Be one of us.
All right.
That's why you got to retire early. You don't have to put up with any of that crap.
Yeah, I'm hoping I can work it out to get retired soon. Not that I won't do stuff, but I want to have my own schedule.
I've been retired like 15 years, and boredom will catch up with you eventually.
I don't know.
Well, what did Bruce say?
Be able. He needs to eat.
Hangry.
Oh, hangry.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if I'll ever be able to retire. I think I'm just going to be a permanent cook until the day I fall over.
Ah, well, you should change that. Cooks don't get paid too much, depending on where you work.
Thought just occurred. Get a different camera. Go take it into the kitchen and become the next Gordon Ramsay.
I already talked to my clients, and they like their privacy, so that was a no.
Are you a personal chef?
Yeah, I'm a personal chef.
Yeah.
That doesn't stop you from going into your own kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's like being a dentist. The last thing you want to do is come home and talk about teeth.
Well, hey, it's up to you.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Just saying. You want to keep working for somebody else. That's how you do it. You wanna be your own boss. You got to start being your own boss as soon as you can be your own boss.
You got some background noise going on there somewhere. Sounds like a TV.
That could be me.
I'm talking to a client, a previous client, and they're talking about food trucks. Food trucks might be the future.
Thank you, Crafty.
I am trying a new cigar today.
Oh, hey, speaking, let's see if I can bring this up.
Cigars or something else?
No, cigar, no. That's one of those things I stay away from.
You're a smarter person than I am.
Ah. If you want to, anyone out, well, we don't have that many people. I'll wait a little while to get more people in here before I do any of that stuff. Right, so we are Gatekeepers. We have tonight Cigar DM, Shadow of Shadow and Sun, and myself, Joe from Biggus Geekus. Let's see. Let me turn this on. There we go. And Gatekeepers is about curating your gaming experience. So whether that is the table you choose to play at or the table you choose to DM, one way or the other. It's not about curating other people's tables, keeping people out of the hobby because we have no power to do that. However, you have all the power to choose the table that has people there that you like to play with. And as the DM, you get to choose the players. And tonight we're going to be talking about rulings. For the most part. I mean, I know Connell over there is a pay-to-play DM kind of thing going on. So you might have to give some allowances. But I know there's a fellow on Twitter who says that when he runs his paid games, he does not change his methods at all. He lets people know what they are, but he doesn't. He doesn't let people play things in his game that don't fit the game. So he doesn't cater.
That's where you got to start. You you've got to be fair, you've got to be honest, and you've got to be consistent. Those three things are the cornerstones of being a good GM, regardless of the game, the table, the group, whatever. I mean, any game with a referee or a dungeon master or a game master, anything like that, you've absolutely got to adhere to those things. Even, like with me, my favorite written words of Dungeons and Dragons are the afterword in the original Dungeon Master's Guide. Let me break one out just in case anybody's unfamiliar with it. This is my absolute gospel, even though Gygax later went and, contradicted it entirely. What was that? Oh, it's an airplane.
No, it's a motorcycle.
Oh, okay.
I have my window open.
I need to get one of those.
Afterward on page 230, little butt shot for you there. Succubus. You like them thick. This is the page for you. And I honestly believe that this is one of the only pictures and pages of the original Dungeons and Dragons that spurred the actual satanic panic for the most part. Maybe there's a few other images in the Monster Manual 2 and the Fiend Folio, but I think it was actually this image that caused so much grief, but it has the most crucial words, the most important thing Gary Gygax ever wrote, in my opinion. It is the spirit of the game, not the letter of the rules, which is important. Never hold to the letter written, nor allow some barracks room lawyer to force quotation from the rule book upon you. If it goes against the obvious intent of the game as you hew the line, with respect to conformity to major systems and uniformity of play in general, also be certain the game master by you and not by your players, within the broad parameters given in the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons volumes, you are creator and final arbiter by ordering things as they should be. The game as a whole first, your campaign next, and your participants thereafter. You will be playing Advanced Dungeons & Dragons as it was meant to be. May you find as much pleasure in doing so as the rest of us do. And the only change, and Max, always brings this up when I, spew from the holy text, is that setting first. And I absolutely agree, but I'm not going to write in this particular copy of my Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide. But yes, obviously setting comes first. That defines everything that comes after it. Once you, as the game master, have set down your settings and explained it to the players, as it were, the back of a paperback book to entice players into your world, which I recommend that you try to write up a paragraph or two to get your players into the spirit of whatever game you're running. Write a blurb, 2, 3, maybe 4 paragraphs that describe exactly what your world is, as if it was a brand new game, as if you were writing, something completely new, because it is, unless you've got returning players that have been playing in your particular world over and over throughout the years and months or what have you. But always have it handy for your players so that you can say, this is the game. Kind of like, here, let me show you. I just did a review on Gamma World, 3rd edition, which I do not recommend. But it has it has a little blurb on the back to tell you, you look at the cover, it's like Gamma World. Okay, what does Gamma World mean? Well, the picture, as they say, tells, 1,000 words. But what are those words? You got a weird animal with a weird rider, that could tell you, that this is a game full of armored beast riding, highly armored high-tech individuals on some weird alien planet. But no, that's not what it is. Gamma World's Earth. It's after a Holocaust. I'm a huge fan of Gamma World, and I've reviewed Gamma World 1 and 2 and now 3 and 3. You guys can go watch the video if you give a rat about Gamma World. I was a huge fan. I'm trying to get another game going, but I'll be probably running Gamma World 2nd edition, because 1st and 2nd edition, like AD&D, are kind of like the same creature, the same almost identical game, with just, AD&D 2nd edition is just a little bit better version, in some ways. Some things maybe not so much, but they're kind of the same game. You've played them both, right? Joe?
I played the original one years ago, and that's about it.
Oh, you didn't play second?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, the original Gamma World and all of its funky goodness.
No, I mean, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, second edition. Yeah. I've played both first and second and third, and not fourth.
First and second are kind of like the same game, right? They're
kind
very similar. You could mix this stuff easily.
Yeah.
You could say you're playing second and use first. You could say you're playing first and use second. That's what we did. Yeah, that's the way first and second Gamma World is.
Yeah.
But enough of that. If you guys are gonna, be game masters, just be consistent, be honest, and be fair. Because there's a lot of ways to be dishonest, and a lot of ways to be unfair, and a whole lot more ways to be inconsistent. Just by being dishonest and being unfair, and to win at Dungeons and Dragons or any role playing game as a GM, you get your players back to the table. That's how you win as a referee.
Right. Yeah. No.
And as a player, you win by having a good time. It's that simple.
Completely agree. If you want to win as a DM, you guarantee that your players come back every week excited about gaming for X amount of hours that you're going to be going. Sometimes, I can't run. I'm doing it right now, and it bugs the hell out of me. But I'm running a every Monday for about 4 hours. And right when it feels like we're starting to really get into the meat of it, oh, it's 10 o'clock. I got to go to work tomorrow or whatever. I'm like, come on, guys. Let's be 16 years old again during the summer. Let's stay up all night and, get this done. But now, I know, Bruce, not everybody can do a 10-hour game.
Not every week. It's kind of hard to do that.
Actually, it's funny that we're talking about world building. I was talking to the people I run for professionally, and I was just kind of joking around, like, after we're done with here, what do you guys think about doing a world building, being at the bottom level of a world building campaign? They're like, really? They're like, yeah, would that be something you'd be interested in? It's like, how much say do we have in the game? Like, as much say as you guys have now? They're like, that's awesome. We can do this. So I'm going to take a leaf from Bruce's page and turn it into a hex crawl and just work from there.
Right. So we're going to get into world building. We're going to start, though, with rulings. On the fly rulings, the big mantra for the old school folks is rulings over rules. That's not necessarily one of my...
That's kind of where homebrewing started.
Well, basically what ruling over rules gets at is a system, a light rule system that stays out of the way of the DM. So
that's not
old
Pathfinder.
School, old D&D, old D&D before even Beckme.
Yeah.
Beckme itself kind of. Once you started getting to first edition and second edition, there started the amount of rules started escalate a little bit. Though you could still do the ruling part, but third edition really kind of put a nail in that coffin. So, first edition. A lot of people complained about it because it was tournament style, and even then there were people talking about a rule for everything and everything with a rule, and I don't really see first edition that way, but
I've never had a chance to play first edition. So when it comes to ruling, I've heard a lot of people say, well, first edition and second edition are light on rules compared to some of the later editions, 3.5, Pathfinder. But Pathfinder, 3.5 and Pathfinder are just very crunchy rule wise, and that aspect's might not be for everybody. Some people do like simpler games. Like it or hate it, 5e rule wise is fairly simple. I mean, it is not nearly as crunchy as, let's say, 3.5, Pathfinder, even 3.0. It's very smooth and gets to the point.
Right. So, but rulings, though, when it comes to making on-the-fly rulings, which is what rulings versus rules is.
Right.
Even if you're running a game that's kind of crunchy, you don't want to be consulting the rules every 5 minutes if you're to make sure everything is running smoothly. You want to know the rules fairly well so that when something comes up, you can just make a decision on the spot without cracking the book. So even the old systems, you need to be very, very conversant in the rules that they have so that when you make a ruling, it should be somewhat consistent with what's already laid out.
Right.
So knowing the rules that you're playing under is pretty important.
Absolutely. I think I was just in a game last night with Bloodworth, and I've been dungeon mastering a very, very long time, and I got to play as a 6th level magic user in an AD&D game with a bunch of players who've been playing in the campaign for quite a while, and there were some situations that I'm like, not how I remember it, or not how I know it, but I'm not gonna disrupt the game and call out the DM, especially we're like, I think, the exact same age and been doing this the almost exact same amount of time. It's the game master's world. If they screw up on a rule as written, you got to roll with it. You pull out that book and try to show the DM that, hey, you're wrong. That's not going to end well for you. You know what I mean? As a player. And as a dungeon master, if you do make rulings, you make basically new rules, you change an old rule because you're ruling in favor of this new idea. One of the things you got to right off the bat get in the habit of doing is writing it down. Maybe even taking a Post-it, writing down the new rule and slapping it down in the book over the old rule.
Because at the very least, you put yourself a Post-it in that section, or just so that you can refer to it, whether
date it if you can.
Yeah, whether it stands further after that, or you say, "Oh, I made the wrong call, so we're not going to do that again." So one way or the other.
That's part of the being consistent and fair. If you're going to change that rule again in a later, game, a month down the road or something like that, well, you'll have that reminder that, hey, I did this way back in 87 or whatever, and it's been the same since. But now all of a sudden I'm going back to rules as written, or I'm changing it again. You've got to be fair and consistent, and remind yourself that, hey, I did it this way for this reason. Is this a permanent thing? Is this a temporary ruling, that can be overturned later? Or
right. So
that's a very good question.
Yeah. So most of the time, I imagine the ruling coming up when it's a ambiguous situation, and there may not be a specific rule for it. So you just make something up on the fly, an ad hoc kind of rule. You're not necessarily overruling or overriding rules as written, unless you're just remembering it wrong, and everybody just rolls with it if it's fun or if it fits or whatever. That's fine. So here's a good question, I think, from Crafty Matt. At the Gatekeepers, when would you allow a player to talk to you about your table ruling? If the player shows you, or you research and know you got the ruling wrong, do you correct it before the next session? I think, but it depends on the table dynamic. So we have at our table it's kind of relaxed. So if someone says, hey, I think it's like this, and everybody's like, oh yeah, that's true, and then we roll, then it's still cool. The game's flow isn't really interrupted. And most of us will be able to present really fast and not interrupt the flow of the game. So it's not like somebody pulling out a book and saying, hold on a second, I know that's wrong, and he pulls out a book, and none of that happens.
Can you pull up my response? Because I just typed in my response, because I'd like to clarify on it when we get it.
It would be polite to discuss it after the fact, away from the table. Sure. That's certainly another good way to do it.
That's
and most
the
people
polite
do that.
way. Yeah. I have never seen that happen.
Oh yeah, all the time.
More than likely, the player's going to want to jump on it. It's like, hey, no, I know on page 32, this is the way it is. Slow your roll. Maybe that is the way it's written down in a book, but you got to explain, part of the being fair, why you're doing it this way now. And if you want to break down the game and stop the game and get a general consensus on how people think that rule should be changed, or if it should be as written, depending on your players and how much time you want to soak up talking about it, you can do that. But honestly, I'd rather just move on. Okay, stuff is not always going to go your way as a player or as a DM. And as a DM, everything either goes your way or it doesn't, depending on your philosophy of gaming. You're either refereeing a situation or you're telling a story. If you're telling a story, then be careful, because the players are going to catch on and then be like, yeah, well, I have no agency, I'm out. I want to play. I don't want to just be a passenger on a roller coaster and enjoy the ride. I want to create the story. The game is supposed to be about the players first and foremost. If it's not, they're really not playing.
Right. So if you can resolve a thing like that quickly, according to your temperament as a DM and the table, then fine. Otherwise, probably the best bet is to wait till afterwards. And as a player myself, it took some time for me to get that through my thick skull and do that as a matter of course, instead of wanting to jump in. Hey, Bruce.
Hey.
Instead of wanting to say, excuse me, that's wrong. So you learn after, some of us have to learn, like I did, and you wait until you either have a rapport with the DM enough to where you can say blah, 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 and then he'll say no, and you move on. Or you don't say anything. It depends on the situation. It might be too complicated to get into until after, and then that's when you talk about it.
I have a standing rule at the game shop. If you have a problem with my ruling being right or wrong, come talk to me. But this is something I've like the 10 commandments of D&D or Pathfinder, but for table rules that I posted on the wall. Now, I have been at tables that I'm not being paid to, where one player starts arguing with another player, hey, you did that wrong. And next thing I know, books are being, drawn as if they're swords, which I always just I'm like, it's a game, DM has final say at the end of it. Or if you're doing something wrong, I've had another person at another table just tell you outrightly, you're wrong, and this is why. I personally don't like that. It is a DM's prerogative to do the rule of cool or to be hard-nosed about it. I think it depends on the encounter. If you have a counter that is the big fight and that ruling is not right, then say something. But if it's just bullshit, simple everyday bullshit D&D stuff, just let it go. It's not going to hurt the game. The players don't think you got one over on you, maybe, and everybody just leaves the table happy.
There was a game I ran almost 8-9 days ago. Might have been, no, it was like 4 weeks ago. And we were in the middle of a combat. One of the bad guys targets Connell's invisible archer scene. There's some guy around there shooting arrows at me. And he casts mountain cedar glitter dust and completely bamboozled Connell. Gave him, a lot of people in the combat were like, wow, that's fucking crazy. And coated Connell with the fine bits of dust to where everybody could see where he's at now. So now we can all target the archer that's taking us out one time or one per round, And like a couple rounds later, one of the characters cast Dispel Magic, but he was like either one away or on target, but the ruling, I wasn't really comfortable with it being like a second level spell. And so we went back and discussed it afterwards. What I ruled at the time was, no, he doesn't dispel it. And I kind of fucked Connell. And I thought that Connell was probably going to die with the die rolls I was actually launching on camera. And Connell thought he was going to die too. Actually, the entire party thought he was a goner. And I wasn't being... I wasn't pulling a punch at all. And I wasn't trying to target and kill him, but the bad guys know where the archer is. He's got a limited amount of time left in his sand timer. And at the time I ruled it, no, you don't dispel it. But if I had known that Chris had distinctly said, and I went and watched it later, it's at the very end of a 10-hour stream. I know why nobody else saw it. Chris specifically said, dispel magic, the glitter dust, which would have worked normally for a 2nd level spell. What I'm going to do is I'm going to insert that spell into the game as a 3rd level spell this week on our Discord. That way any mages or sorcerers want to get a hold of it, or anybody can cast glitter dust basically. But it's mountain cedar glitter dust. Not only does it make you visible, it also causes you a choking and allergic fit, like all my friends in Texas. If you don't make your fort safe.
I was wondering where the mountain cedar came from.
Yeah, it's a fucking invasive species that the Czechs brought over here. God bless the Czechs for all the things they did here in Texas, except for the one thing of bringing all the seeds of the things that don't belong here. But at the time I ruled it, and the party went with it. We didn't hem and haw too much about it afterwards. After the game was over, we discussed it like we were supposed to. But that's how I always ask. Like, no matter what happens during game, I'll make a ruling, live with it. At the end of the session, we discuss it. Give me chapter and verse. I'll look at it. I'll see if I really fucked up. Which at the time, I thought that, I think if I'd listened to Chris and he had actually said glitter dust whenever he was dispelling it, I would have been like, yeah, you get rid of it. Fuck. Okay, whatever. And then you guys would have won that combat a lot easier. It was supposed to be the really climactic one, which I wanted the players to be biting their nails. I want players to have their assholes slammed shut and pucker. There's certain periods where the DM wants that to happen. There's other combats that will happen that the players should feel like complete and total badasses. You're wading through Special Olympics, or you're hacking down Jerry's kids, or maybe you're just deciding to stomp on an anthill to get an extra XP. I don't give a shit. You should feel like a badass.
Bruce, you know I cannot hack down Jerry's kids. Come on. I'm playing a pal.
I get it. But I need the players to feel like badasses sometimes. I need them to feel like they have ate their Wheaties and they pop their vitamins and they're listening to the Hulkster and they're doing their prayers at night, you know. For the time that we run, I need you to play. I don't care if we're playing Mathfinder. I don't care if we're playing a game that requires a Jewish lawyer and an abacus. I need you to play your game to the best of your ability. If you're having trouble with your character sheet, fine. Use a hero. What is that? HeroCraft or
Hero Lab.
Whatever.
I always want to call it Forge, but it's Hero Lab. Yeah.
The Forge is where you make the signatures.
Yep.
But I'm not a very big fan of it because it makes it a crutch. And I don't like crutches. I want you to know your character and the mathematics behind it inside and out.
So did you make that ruling? So you didn't make that ruling to make the encounter purposely more difficult?
No, not really.
No. You're not talking about making rulings to make encounters easy for the purpose of having your party be able to flex and feel super. Yeah. You just provide them encounters that do that.
Yes. Listen, my party has elected at the moment to go hack down giants. What happens from that decision, I cannot control.
No, because you're not going to feel too super.
No. And that's why here, after they get done with the cathedral, if they find a cathedral, they're going to have a big, like, oh my God moment. And then after that, I'll let them play with hobgoblins again. Go ahead, play with the hobgoblins.
Right. So I guess what we're saying is, in general, you should wait. I have a caveat to that. It depends on the table, because there are people who have no problem talking back and forth as long as you're not really slowing the game down. That is a what?
This is David Lopan.
Oh, cool.
Oh shit, it is.
Joe,
And that-
one thing I would like to add, we have to, as GMs, understand that players are going to get really invested in their characters, really invested. Some, more than others, obviously. And for the most part, if whatever the ruling is, they make it through, they're still alive, maybe a little worse off. Okay, cool. Just shut up. We'll talk about it later. But give them the benefit of the doubt when death is on the line. They're not going to give up and just go, okay, fine, I'm dead. If they think they have a reason why they should not be dead, you're going to kind of have to hear them out. If your ruling is literally going to drop them below zero, or even onto their next incarnation, their next life, you kind of gotta give them that little bit of fighting chance at the end. If they can give a halfway decent argument, or convince you, or plead to the gods, or whatever, you kind of that's really not it doesn't work with the game and the story. Everybody drink. If you wait until after they're dead to go, oh yeah, you're right, okay, you're alive. Nah, give them that minute to make their point. Otherwise, there's nothing worse than having to retcon your own game because you did something monumentally dumb as a GM. And
So,
better to
Yes, on what you're saying, a fairly recent game, I had a character that bit the dust, and so I made up. It was an old. It comes with figures that you can paint. That's cool. Big Trouble in Little China. So had a character bit the dust. The DM had to make a ruling, and the ruling meant, you bit the dust. So.
Oh wow!
Since it was old school D&D, it took 5 minutes to make a new character, and the DM said, "Yeah, well, your character will be here since there was a kind of prisoner situation going on." Those are pretty nifty.
I just got a Well, I won't be.
You know what though? I already see a problem, Bruce.
What's that?
The plastic tray. Is it a problem? Is it a problem?
Not really. They come out pretty.
Oh, you mean it might rub paint off?
Yeah.
I've got some games that are like that, and they are pain in the ass. Mutant Chronicles, Siege of the Citadel, etc. You might be better off going to your local store and seeing if you can't find a box that will fit in there and get rid of that plastic tray. I did it with HeroQuest, and it saved me hours of headache of pulling them out. Not only just pulling them out, but remembering exactly where they went. With one game, I had to take a photograph of that what you just showed us and saved it so that I would know where to put the miniatures because they weren't perfect little cubbies that were obvious what went in what cubby. So maybe go down to Target or Walmart or something, measure the box, and see if you can't find one of those clear plastic boxes and put the minis in that with a little bit of bubble wrap to pad them, or foam rubber if you could find it from one of those pluck and pull gun cases or something like that. Because whenever I do that, buy one of those gun cases, I save that foam that you pull out so that your gun will fit in the case. Well, I save that foam because it's usually like 1 inch by 1 centimeter little rectangles that work really nice to protect your minis in the case. Otherwise, like Joe said, when you pull them in and out, you could be scraping the paint off the base or maybe other connection points.
Right. So to what I was getting at is the DM made a ruling, caused my character to bite the dust. I made up a character real quick, and then Randy, the DM, after the session was over, felt bad about it and was like, we can retcon that. And I was like, no, I got another character, no big deal. We still ended up doing it because he insisted, because he felt that he made a bad call or a wrong call, or wasn't as fun as it could be, whatever that means. But I didn't get upset about my character dying, especially since he was only first level anyway, so big deal. But people do still get upset over their first level characters because they have a 10-page backstory, and they've already imagined their whole lifespan and how they've saved the universe. And
That's actually a really good point. First level versus long existing characters. If it's first level, just suck it up, make a new character. That's always going to be my kind of go-to.
Have some ready.
Yeah.
So
but,
let's move along a little bit to the next. I have another little point here on the fly rulings. So I was just saying, knowing the rules is important, but also knowing the current scenario well will help you make on the fly rulings better, because you know how what's going on. So if some situation happens that you didn't foresee, which it happens every time you sit down at the table,
or your players suck,
right? So you something like that happens. If you know the scenario you're running, then you can much more easily adapt to them and to the players, what the players have done, and make your ruling based on how well you know the scenario. What do you think about that, Mr. Connell? Hold on, scratch that. We'll go with Bruce first, since he got in here a little late.
I would say that just make a ruling no matter what now. Just make it and continue on the game. If you have somebody that's on death's door and successful whatever will give them the ability to continue that character, I give you a minute. Provide chapter and verse. Let me know what, where. Within 60 seconds, that timer is very important. Otherwise, you expire. That's just as good as rolling that one on your fort save to continue breathing. Oh, I'm sorry, you don't stabilize. Sorry, kids.
Right. What I was saying, though, is what will help with the rulings part is knowing the scenario you're running. Well.
Yeah. And if people are playing a game by literally the seat of their pants, which I know a few DMs still do.
Sandboxing, essentially.
No, it's not even sandboxing. It's more like they look over on the wall and get inspired by a picture on a calendar, and that becomes their 45-minute encounter. And then they don't have a plan. They just go into it without a clue, and they're trying to use their charisma as the returning reason why players would come back. That's the only thing I really complain about. Like, the rulings should enhance your game and should be quick enough, concise enough to help reinforce your opinion as DM. But for the scenario involved, the players should should be under the auspice that you are going into the game and you have a series of events for them to go through, or you have a sandbox for them to go through, or you have hexes for them to go through. They should never know that as a dungeon master, you're winging it, or you don't know where they're going to go next. You should have something planned for them. Or if you do not, you should have a chart which will help you and inspire at least a half hour's worth of table talk and RP and a situation that will result in a decision point.
Right. So folks who like to roll random tables, like wandering monsters or point crawls or hex crawls or dungeon crawls, whatever, however you do it,
Yes.
They're going to possibly have more challenging time. Possibly, maybe not. This is just a thought of mine when I was writing this up, that perhaps knowing the scenario will help you make better or will help you with making your rulings, and perhaps having the more sandbox, the more open-ended, random table experience, like some people like, might make making rulings a little more challenging. What do you think, Shadow?
Well, for me, I do pretty much sandbox, pretty much everything, and it goes together with what we're going to talk about later with the world building. Sandboxing doesn't mean just rolling random everything.
Right.
then you might as well just give them the charts and let them figure it out. You know,
But
you're not.
I just want to. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there is a contingent of players out there who believe that that anything apart from random table adventure generation is railroading, and you don't do that. That's not D&D. So I'm not agreeing with that. I'm saying that is a style of play that people like, and that's fine for them.
I don't think I've ever met any people like that. Because I'll just randomly just throw dice behind my DM screen, just to see them, squirm a little.
Yeah.
It builds the tension. They don't know what I'm doing. They don't have any right to know what I'm doing. And if they ever actually, figure it out, I will, probably change it. No, I'm kidding. But with, like I said, it goes with the world building. Some of you guys out there may remember the game Might and Magic, the PC or the Sega.
Yeah.
Or Bard's Tale. It was a computer game and a Sega game where the programmers made this world, and you just went out and explored it. And if you bumped into a quest, it activated the quest, and then you could just leave the quest. You didn't ever have to finish it. Nothing made you go and do it. But if you did, and then you went back, you got your reward, and virtually nothing else changed. Or maybe some things were ticking along and starting off timers. I don't know. I never went through the code. Even if I did, I wouldn't know what I was looking at. Just ones and zeros. That's the way. Bruce,
did you ever fight 396 berserkers?
No, but I did fight something like that number of wyverns and dragons in one hallway. It was epic.
Okay.
It was. I just love that game. It was so simple, but it was how you should run a sandbox. You make your world, you populate it, as much as you want, because you can keep the players from traveling, 8,000 miles in a game session because they want to go and look at that one mountain. If you want, you can keep them from going there and just work.
Put an ogre in their way.
Just work on the areas that you have drawn out. You could show them the map and go, okay, this is what you know of the world. Okay, we're going to head right over there, the farthest point on the map. That's our first goal. Well, you might want to do that, but it's going to take some time, and you're not going to get there tonight. And you put stuff in their way, but you're not really railroading them because they're choosing where they're going, and at any minute they can change and go, you know what? We're going that way now. Okay, well, over there, I've got that ready. Over here, I got this ready. And you're just going to, you've already kind of rolled up the monsters. You've already rolled up the random encounters because they're not random, they're here. If you get to this point, that's where they are, and you randomly bump into them because you randomly decided to go there, as opposed to just, constantly rolling up dice and looking for wandering monsters and then having to roll their hit points and their hit dice and their treasure. When I'm playing, I can see, through the DM's shield, and I know what he's doing. I've been there, So you've got to be one with your world, but, not railroad it. But you also got to be one with the party. You got to know these guys, maybe not at the beginning, really, really well, but you've got to learn how they are. And if you can't learn how they are because you just met them, then you got to learn the character types. If you've got a party of all paladins, that makes it easy. You know what they're going to do. They're paladins. If they start going, nonsense. All right, none of us want to be paladins anymore. Let's go rape and pillage. That's never going to happen. Okay, they went and rolled up a paladin. Okay, Connell, you think you really?
No.
You want to run a party that now has a plethora of gods mad at you because you just suddenly gave a double barrel to the gods and the DM in the middle of the game? You might as well just take out the big lighter and torch them yourself. Because for the most part, we don't invite strangers to our table. Connell may be the exception. He has no choice. But if a brand new group of people come to your table, right, and they go, we got a bunch of first level characters and we're ready to go and we're all assassins. You know what you're in for, right?
Sure. You're in for mayhem.
Okay, but if they go, we got a cleric, we got a druid, a thief, a ranger, a fighter, a barbarian, and we all want to play. Well, you kind of better know those professions, and I don't know if you guys use alignments or not in 5th edition? I'm guessing no, because that's
no,
hard.
no. There are alignments, but it's not as
Yeah, we're kind of getting off the beaten track here, though.
I'm just giving it the business.
Yeah.
Just giving it the business.
Giving him the business. Yeah. So, Connell, what do you think about? What do you think about knowing the scenario or having more of a random experience? How that affects your ability to make your rulings?
if I'm running for the shop, I already know what the next 3 sessions are going to look like because I have it mapped out. I'm playing a module, so it's all mapped out. I have everything ready to go. So if they get a little farther one day, but they get instead of going 10 miles one day, they can only do 5. The next time they do 10 miles. I have everything squared away. I'm ready to rock and roll. If it's something where it's just basically off the cuff, like I've done before, especially a dungeon crawl where I'm doing the random monster, I like random encounters, but each tile or each map has a number assigned to it that has a chart with what monster might be in it, and each monster already has its hit points and AC and damage allocator already written out. I have the great problem of overthinking. So I'm very rarely ever caught unaware.
Oh, so you don't do much random stuff. You already know what's going on.
I already know what's going on, but
Okay.
I will there's a chance between a skeleton, a undead, or whatever. So it's one of the 3. I roll a d4. It's 2. Okay, then I roll again to see how many. Then done. It's managed in.
Right. All right. So I think what we can all agree that doing the whole rulings thing and not relying on your books to go look up things and having the players on board with rolling with it. And if they have questions, let's wait till later. Keeps the game moving, which is what everybody wants or what they all should want. You have contentious folks out there who want to be right instead of play, but there's a good answer for those kind of folks.
I feel
Yeah, you can be right or you can be happy.
Yeah, and then there's the door. There's the door. Go away.
What was that, Bruce?
I feel personally attacked.
What's that?
Also,
You're saying some people just want to be right instead of want to play, and I'm like, I feel personally attacked.
Well,
I'm sorry. I took 4th Ed Hackmaster to heart. I'm so sorry.
that's
I'm
fine.
familiar with
That's
that,
fine.
Bruce.
A trip through the door a couple of times will cure you of that.
Oh wow.
We are talking about gatekeeping here.
Yeah.
You might need to find a more amenable DM.
Without saying names, the rule lawyer that drove me nuts in one of Bruce's campaign was also my ride home most nights when we game. So,
You heard it.
I heard it. And if I did anything wrong, I doubly heard it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, so that kind of person can be very irritating.
I missed something Thurston said, and I'm trying to figure out what he meant by how is that not a railroad?
You were describing how the players really etching out on your hexes where they wanted to go. And you're describing how the players are scripting where they're going to go. And you're like, that's fine. I don't need to do any special rules. I don't need to look at the map. I know exactly what's going to happen. And Thurston Howell was commenting, maybe he was just being a sarcastic person, or maybe he was actually pinging you, going, how is that not a railroad? And the thing is that
It's not a railroad because I didn't decide where they're going.
Right.
A railroad is a module, an adventure module that's written, and you got to do this, then you got to do that, then you got to do that, and you basically don't have much choice. You're just there for the ride. Any folded, pre-written module adventure or whatever, if the players say they're going there, but I already know what's there, that's not a railroad. That's them deciding, because at any minute they can change their mind and go somewhere else.
Not everything needs to be random.
Right. I made the world, and these are where the little pieces are that they can bump into.
Right.
And if they bump into those pieces, that's not me. That's them choosing to go there, because every single step of the way they can choose to double back, turn left, right, or just sit down. I'm just I'm just popping up, the monsters or the encounters when they walk into that hex. That's what's there. That was what was there, since the beginning of time. This hill giant has been waiting for someone to, do battle with him or whatever. And if no one ever goes there, that poor little hill giant, gets to live that much longer. But if someone happens to totally,
he probably ate a whole farm load of people yesterday. Poor little hill giant. Anyway, Thurston says, I'm just curious how you would define a railroad, and I'm going to take that in a general sense. I'll probably have a different take than you, since I'm one of those roll everything types that Joe mentioned. All right, so to me, a railroad is when the player's choices really don't matter. You go north, there's the ogre. You go south, there's the ogre that would have been there if you had chosen any direction you choose. The DM wants you to fight that ogre, so you're going to fight that ogre. That's the quantum ogre problem of the railroad, and some people like doing that. The rolling everything random or not rolling everything random doesn't affect whether it's a railroad, in my mind. It's what Shadow and Son is saying. You know what's there, and the players deciding to go a particular direction is probably enough randomness for anybody, because we as players can be pretty random. They might not go somewhere where you've prepared something. Depending on how anal you are, that might not be possible. But
I mean, how many players really want to know that the dungeon master? Okay, you go left. Okay, let me roll up what's left, and then go look and write the stuff down so I have the notes, etc. Or would you rather just, you bump into that hill giant and you're in combat now? Or do you want me to literally, okay, I have to roll, look up a chart to see what's there. Okay, it's a green dragon. Now I got to figure out how many hit points it has. Does it have any magic items? Does it know any spells? Does it have any friends in the neighborhood that it can call out for help? Or do you want to just me tell you what's already there and have the fastest, most fluid, smooth running game you can think of?
You might do a reaction roll.
Mm-hmm.
That might, depending on the situation.
Sure, I'm not just I'm trying to also speed up the conversation and blast through my point.
But that adds to the random. So some people want random, and I'm with you. The PCs are already random enough. So if you've laid out what's there, and I'm sure what you also might do is, depending on what the players do, it might change between sessions what's there. So if they go west and they kill the ogre that's over west, word gets out, things might shift around a little bit depending on how you set things up. So I could see why someone might think it's a railroad to have everything set and then be static. But if you keep your world a little dynamic and behind the scenes, and every time the players go somewhere, there's some, they're going to bump into whatever you've placed there, even considering how you've maybe moved things around. So yeah, I agree with Shadow completely on that. And there you go. Cool, that makes sense.
Now, I've noticed, if I can jump in here really quick about the railroading. I've noticed in some campaigns I've been in to where you get two very driven type A personalities, and most of them type A personalities I find normally play paladins. But that's not a bad thing. That's just something I've noticed. Anyways, then what we're going here, well, the rest of the party just goes along, go along, because the two people or the one person, the caller, the leader of the group says, well, I think we should go here. Does anybody have anything else to say? No, because what's the point of arguing with him, because he's already made up his mind. So players can railroad each other. I've seen.
That's a good point.
Well, okay, so there's some nuance there too. So one quick thing here. Patrick asks, Joe, by your definition, are all modules railroads? That depends, mostly. But if that module doesn't have any indication of whether or not, if there's no real choices that the players can make, then yeah. If the same set of circumstances happen no matter what the players do, then yeah.
Or if their only choice by, let's say, alignment is to do the right thing, and then if you don't do the right thing, then there is no game.
Right.
Okay, if you guys are playing evil characters and you're running the slave lord mission modules from back in the day, and you guys decide to join the slave lords, well, then that's not a railroad. But
right.
if by
if the DM just runs the module as written with no matter what you do, then yeah, that's kind of a railroad, right?
Well, what I mean is like if no, kind of like, well, yes and no. If you the DM lays down the hook, go rescue the orphan, and that's the only hook adventure he's got lined up for you, other than something similar, go rescue the princess, go rescue the orphans, and go rescue the missing, townsfolk. And you're playing, and you guys just don't care, the players.
Damn it.
And do stuff for ourselves. We don't want to help people out, but if you don't, you're kind of a jerk for not doing it. That's kind of railroady. If the GM's only offering you things that won't make you look like douchebags for not doing them. You kind of understand what I'm saying?
In a way, but the DM's got to know the group too.
Exactly.
Yeah. I've said this multiple times. I run Rise of the Rune Lord. I've noticed since I've been DMing it now, this will be the third time through, that there are certain aspects of the module that is not railroadish. You don't have to go save. You don't have to go save an animal from the inbred orcs. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, there's some side quests that you don't necessarily have to complete. Yeah,
right. But you get XP and boon if you do. So yes, modules, for the natures of being modules, yes, are very railroad. I mean, you're sticking in a game into your favorite console and you're just running it with your friends. But it does not have to be complete railroad. It can have its offshoots, a side quest, as you put it, where it has really nothing to do overall with the story. It's just a little bit extra.
Well, you can also just use the module as a suggestion, and then if you know the module well enough or the system well enough, and all that, you can make changes on the fly as the players do things out of turn, like they will do.
Right.
When I played Rise of the Rune Lords, as I was a player, I said, hey, why don't we get all these, because it looked like the giants were going to like move in on the humans and try to conquer them. So I was like, let's rally the humans together and meet them on the battlefield and take them out, be proactive. That's not really something that the module plans for.
No,
it
doesn't.
Yeah. So because I like to think outside of the box and do things that are different. And of course, me and Randy talked about it, and I was like, okay, well, we'll just roll with it because it might be kind of difficult to take it out of its scope. Anyway, so yes, railroad is generally your players' decisions have very little effect on the outcomes. You go left, ogre. You go right, ogre. Go up, ogre. Go down, ogre, or some permutation of that. And some people like just running through modules. What are we doing tonight, DM? We're doing this module. And
it's a great way to cut your teeth. They're really good teaching tools for young dungeon masters of any age. I don't really mean young, but I cut my teeth on all the original TSR modules and ran them sometimes a couple of times. And that was, honestly, before Connell was actually born. And once I got to a certain point, I stopped. I haven't run another module other than the only one I run is this one called Caliban by David A. Hargrave and Arduin, and it's the most bare minimalistic. There's literally like one page of text in the beginning that explains what Caliban is, and then the rest of it is some monsters. But 90% of the dungeon is like B1 where you fill in the blanks. And I run it every Halloween that I can. I've run it like 20 times now, and I run it because it's more of a traditional thing. In a nutshell, Caliban is a dungeon that wanders through other dimensions, and it'll open its doors, and lure in monsters to stock itself, so that it can then lure in characters to eat them. It's a living, breathing dungeon. It's a building that's alive with evil, kinda.
I think I've seen that movie.
It lures in the monsters, uses them to populate its rooms, and then it will lure in characters and hopefully kill them, and maybe then eat all the monsters and then go to another dimension and keep doing it.
That's sinister.
It's a fun module. I'll find a way if you guys are interested in making like a photocopy of it, because you can literally, there's nothing to it. But if you try to buy one on eBay, it's like $200.
Oh.
You can also go to Emperor's Choice and grab a copy from them, real cheap. But it's just
Choice.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're the only people who make Arduin, and I'm helping them out to bring back Arduin again. But my point is, it's the only module I run because it's barely a module. Right. It's a dungeon. Okay, cool. It's Halloween. Let's go to Caliban. Right. It's just one of those dumb things that I do. Right. On a long list before you guys jump on that. Yeah, I have a long list of dumb things I do regularly.
All right, so let's move into world building, because I know Shadow and Son's really looking forward to it. I'm
going to keep my secrets till Sunday. I'm just going to give you guys the bare minimums here.
Sure.
I'm just going to phone this part in. No. I actually have some actual words of wisdom that's better for this than for the other thing. I thought about it, and like, I have two philosophies. I'm going to give you one, and then you can tune in Sunday to get the other one.
Sounds good.
But let everybody else go first.
Oh, okay. So I was going to pose a series of questions, and the first one is, do you world build? And as a corollary to that, do you have the players help? So is it just the DM saying this is the world and you go do it, or do you collaborate? So that's number one.
Okay. That just blows me away.
Yeah, because some people don't really world build; they just run modules. And
No. It was the letting other people help you design your world, Mister. I have to have control over everything.
Players help dictate what goes in your world.
Are you high? Have you met me? What kind of drugs have you been smoking? Jesus Christ!
and over here, the Kitsune and all of the races you never let in your game world, they're all over here in this 5-mile parcel, and they're all getting along well together, like a Star Wars cantina, 24/7 until you walk in, and then somebody gets their arm hacked off.
So I think Bruce and Shadow, myself included, are probably not in the crowd of having the players help. What about Connell?
No. I will. No. As I said earlier,
that's like giving a child a firearm.
I will let them.
A child a firearm.
Oh, sure.
I will let them. I will start the world off by I'll create the world, and their characters could end up being pillars of the storyline continuing. But at the end of the day, I choose and design what the world's going to be like, what gods, what monsters, and so forth and so on that's going to be allowed. I have final say, especially if it's my world. Granted, I also have a habit of running IPs. So it's not exactly my world. I just tweak it enough where I can run from it.
Tweak it?
Tweak.
Yeah, take that N out of there. Twink has some connotation.
Because if you do, we're gonna have to have a long talk after this.
Yeah.
I came up with while he was talking, I came up with 2 exceptions. Okay, one is the diceless role-playing game of Amber for the Amber Chronicles. If any of you guys know what I'm talking about, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Where you can, as a player character, literally make up a world on the fly and say, I'm going there, and there I am, king, god, lord of that planet, and they've been waiting for me to get there, and once I get there, I can do whatever I want. That is literally a game mechanic of that game. Doesn't that sound incredible? Also, the other instance in Traveler, if you guys play Traveler, and you have a spaceship, and you guys are just a bunch of, rogues looking for an adventure in space, I will let the players roughly describe a world they want to go to, okay? And see if one is nearby. Because they're in space, and I have literally 1 million planets, so the chances of them describing a planet and it being in my galaxy, they probably got it better than a 50-50 chance. But other than that, no way.
I want to go to the planet of hookers and blow.
Okay, there's one of those in every sector. Because I'm God.
At least one.
In my game, I'm God, so pretty much that's a guarantee. You don't even have to. You can throw a stick and you can find one.
And
You're probably on it already.
If you leave it up to the Hollywood types, every planet is a single thing. Like it's a commerce planet, or it's a diplomacy planet, and like that. That's like that's going to happen. But in that scenario, you're going to have the horror planet you can go to, or many of them, or the bar planet. This is the booze planet. Oh, that's Bruce's planet, the booze planet, right?
Yeah, no, I'm going to horror planet. Booze will just be ancillary.
Oh, gotcha. They're probably a binary. They go around each other. Binary system.
Yeah, I get it.
As opposed to the non-binary systems.
Yeah.
Now, for all further information about Hookers and Blow channel, please look forward to the talk about the Strippers Guild. That will be the end of every Table Breakers discussion.
The Hookers Guild. Anyway, or Strippers Guild. Which one did you say? Strippers Guild.
Strippers Guild.
All right. So we are fond of world building, and we leave that up to the DM. I think we are in agreement. So
yeah.
I'll start
wait. If the players want to make a world, you know what you do, right?
You say you can DM.
Exactly.
So starting with Bruce, what do you use for inspiration to do your world building?
I actually have a World Builder's Guidebook from second edition AD&D, and then I also have some notes from an old Star Wars galaxy guide where they help you build your own planets. And between those two things,
was that written by Gygax?
What?
Bruce? The book you're talking about. Was it written by Gygax?
No.
No, it was second edition, so nothing was written by Gygax.
Not a damn thing was written by Gygax in second ed, bud.
Gygax, sodium. Okay, sodium. Man, I'm fucking tired. Sodium.
He's Marconi off of the Year of Living Dangerously with the Michael Keaton. He's the Italian mobster that mispronounces everything.
Oh, that's Boondock Saints. No, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Well, there's also the one from Johnny Dangerously, who mispronounced all kinds of words.
That movie was amazing.
Anyway, so your inspiration is your World Builder's Guidebook.
Yeah, I have that, and then I also have an email that I never look at, and whenever I open it up, it's a bunch of shit from Raging Swan Press, which is my absolute favorite generator of things to buy. And if you don't know who Raging Swan Press is, I'll just give you a Google search for the Lonely Coast PDF. It's free. 64 pages of fucking free free.
Wow.
And you start reading it, and it feels like you've unearthed the landscape where you will be putting B1 and B2 at, as you just have you've just opened up the magenta box. You're 12 years old. You don't know what a good boner is, but you know you want to play this in the basement with your friends.
Hopefully without
Okay,
a boner.
clarification, and it's not the clarification you think. Raging Swan, what?
Raging Swan Press.
Okay, and really, you're gonna go down in the basement with your friends like that? Come on, man.
Yeah.
There's kids watching this.
Hey,
No, there's not.
there's no good kids watching this kid.
Your kid might be watching this.
Hi, Jeff.
Kid, you watching this? Son, you watching? You listening?
He's taking
Okay,
notes.
we're cool.
He's taking notes. Go down into the basement with a boner. That's
No,
the.
I don't have a
that's the-
boner when I'm 12 years old. I don't know what a good boner is until I'm like 14. Then I all of a sudden start to grow. That was the year Bruce came out of the 3 foot to 4 foot.
Right. Okay. So boners aside,
That can hurt.
yeah. Ouch. Connell,
I'm sorry. I'm just
inspiration.
trying to. World
Boner
building.
free, please.
Yes, if I'm world building, it really depends on who I'm doing it for. If I got a group of people who are also Jim Butcher fanatics like I am, I can make the Dresden Files world. I can do a homebrew a world of that. If it's just me, messing around, I normally do with ancient history, like do a world building, but purely on Italy, Rome, Greece, and just use those nations, or those countries, I should say, and just build on the mythology and what the players can have. Because I don't need to draw out a world. I already have it drawn out.
Ah, gotcha. So real world is your
Well,
inspiration.
you're
What
gonna
about
this
you, Shadow?
weekend, pal. You are gonna draw this weekend.
I don't draw. I could drink.
You'll be
Okay.
drawing.
Here's
Um,
the-
for-
here-
And
Oh,
Thieves
you
World.
bastard! God, I wish I still had my copy of Thieves World.
yeah. So I got
That's in pretty good condition too.
yeah.
So Shadow, what's your inspiration?
I never really rely on a book or anything like that, for world building. What I go by is what I want to see or talk or tell the story about. A lot of times they actually come to me in dreams and things like that. The landscape. That's what I worry about. Not so much the nations and the cities and the capitals, but like weird scenery. I read a lot of Lovecraft's Dream Cycle and a lot of other old fantasy literature from way, way, way back, pre-Gygax, the stuff that he read, and I look for things that I want to talk about, kind of like the way they do it in Star Wars, kind of where it is, Hoth, it's an ice planet. Well, okay, this adventure is going to take place in a snowy area, okay? Because I feel like I'm in a snowy mood, or I want them to have to, jump over, pools of lava, as in the White Plume Mountain, or, again, Star Wars, or something like that. It's, I really draw the inspiration from the environment I want them to have to deal with. Maybe, I want them to have to struggle through the desert, this part of the adventure. So, when I'm literally drawing on a map the world, I will draw those areas that I want them to go through. My worlds are they probably don't make sense geologically, well, you're never going to have a river here. Well, guess what? There's a river there. Shut up. Okay, we're not in school. We're here to have a good time. And if there's a river in a place there should not be a river, suck it up. Okay?
Right. I mean, you're not going to always have real world. You're not going to always break real world physics. When you drop something, it hits the ground. But we're not as individuals super conversant in all aspects of the physical world. So we're gonna have a river or lake where it may not fit exactly, but it's a fantasy world, so who cares?
Right.
Yeah, I have tried to learn, that you're gonna have lakes in certain kinds of areas more often than not. not in the middle of a desert, things like that. But what if I put one there, yeah, I love that game. I haven't played it in 2 years, but I love it, and I know they've been making it better. But yeah, it's going to be kind of fantastic. Go figure. Whether it be science fiction or fantasy or Gamma World or Boot Hill or any top secret. Well, maybe not top secret. I'll probably stick to real world Earth stuff. But you get my idea. It's just I want them to experience things that they're not going to find just any old trip on Earth. If they go on vacation somewhere, that's cool. But if they go on vacation on one of my worlds, they're going to see stuff you'll never see in the real world, because that's what made Star Wars great, was planets of lava, planets of desert, and in space you are going to find planets that are kind of like that. You will find frozen planets that are completely iced over, or
Sure,
planets
there won't be
that
anybody living there, but yeah,
until we go there and try and futz with it and make it better.
Yeah.
So in science fiction, I got a lot more to work with. In fantasy, I try to make it, more believable. There's going to be forests and rivers and mountains and oceans and stuff like that. But I've got, 20 different ocean planets in one sector of one of my galaxies. And on every planet you go to, you're going to be lucky to find any land. It's going to be all water. Okay, that's how it turned out.
I'm right there with you, Arn, man. I love history books. I love reading about world history. And the moment you throw that culture's mythology on top of it, you can do a campaign, a world building that lasts for however long you want. I don't get into sci-fi like Shadow does. So going to a different world, or what was the game you're talking about, The Strange, where you can jump?
The Strange is kind of like Sliders in a way, except in Sliders they kept their own memories and bodies and capabilities. In this, when you slide, you have a new body that has some new abilities. So you can look completely different when you slide, so to speak.
That's kind of interesting.
Well, I did love that told, write what you know, do what you know, especially when it comes to DMing, go with what you know. Yeah, so I figured if I do mythology over something on world building, and I know the mythology of that area, it should be an interesting world building experience.
Unfortunately, there is one problem with that theory. Anybody who knows the same mythology, one is not. They're gonna recognize it, and they're not gonna be like, oh wow, this is totally brand new, unique feeling. They may very well be like, oh, okay, if I go to a planet and Thor's one of the gods, instantly already I'm disappointed. It's like, oh crap.
Well, I get what you're saying, but even in the original D&D or D&D 2, the divine book of gods, I think Thor was.
Yeah, and I don't know anybody who ever actually used it for anything other than Cthulhu.
No, we did. When we were kids, so we pitted the Norse and the Norse and the Roman gods, the Greek gods. We treated them like they were the WWE or WWF when we were kids, and pitted them against each other. I'm on their side, and with the other PCs on the other side, and we were all kind of duking it out. It was real juvenile, but yeah, we used them.
But even if that god exists in your world, doesn't mean he is going to show up.
No, that's not the point. That's not. They should never show up. They should have somebody else show up for them, or just somebody else is taking the call. It's the whole idea of just getting away from everything. That's why I don't like history. It's also for religious reasons, which we're not going to go into. But it's in the past. It's never going to happen again. Sure, there's some cool stuff about it, but nothing gets my blood pumping like fantasy and fiction. It's something new. I can't predict what's going to happen if it's completely brand new. I understand that, there are valuable lessons to be learned from history, but there could be those same lessons written into other things throughout the course of history. Many fictional books rely on history, so I've learned those lessons through fiction, if you will.
Okay.
Which is weird because my son absolutely loves history, and I'm just a complete dolt when we have those conversations. Like, I don't know. I have no idea. I made it a point not to know these things. You're actually asking me things that I could never possibly want to know the answer. If you tell me the answer, I will forget the answer within 30 seconds.
So, published settings. Connell?
Yeah, I use published settings. If I'm doing, like I said, if I'm running for other Jim Butcher fans, or I found a way to tweak around with Game of Thrones, it does not have to be the TV show. It could be set 100 years from then or 100 years backwards. I mean, just pre-made worlds, as long as you understand the meat and potatoes of the world or the history of the world, you can basically do whatever you want, I find. So, and once again, I don't have to draw a map. I mean, I don't have to, all the not heavy lifting, but most of the design of the world is done. All I got to do is do the important part, which is tell a story.
Okay, so as a corollary, and I'm going to do this with all of you, how much of it do you use? Do you use most of it, a little bit of it, make it your own? File, so to speak, file off the serial number and just make it your own. So you got a base, and then you.
I love that expression.
A little bit. Yeah.
If I'm doing listen, if I'm doing Dresden, you'll never meet Dresden. You'll never meet most of the main players in the book. You might know who he is, but he will never be a part of the campaign. And it is based up in Chicago, Illinois, which I know Chicago fairly well. So it is. I keep it fairly connected to that world, but without using the main players of that world, because
that would just overshadow the PC. So yeah, I would do that too. Why would you go on the adventures? Why not Dresden? Send Dresden. He can do it.
Right. Well, Dresden
or
is
Molly or whoever.
Right. Dresden is in New Mexico dealing with ghouls, and you're the only choice we have. Yeah, we know you're blah blah blah, but would you please go take a blah blah blah?
So yeah, a lot of people avoid, especially well-beloved IPs for that reason. They steer away from them, so that you're not messing with something everybody likes.
Right. If you treat it with respect and truly know what you're talking about, they can be really fun storylines to run with.
Right.
Yeah, I just, after running a campaign for 5 years where the players don't know the main movers and shakers, there's something really nice about the fact that nobody really knows a system that's published. I don't want to really play in Forgotten Realms, but that option's there. But if I were to open my doors up and say I'm running Forgotten Realms or Greyhawk, and I give a time frame of when I'm running this campaign, every neckbeard will step out of the world book.
Well, actually, this person wasn't alive at this time to cast this spell and create that. So that spell wouldn't be usable from the player's handbook. And you have this like dick measuring contest with your players, and you're like,
listen, you little faggot. This is my goddamn game world. You listen to me. You can play this goddamn game the way I'm running it. And I ask you to fucking respect the people to your left and your right.
So I just have to say that I have very little room for play on that.
So for you, no.
I don't. I file up the numbers.
File up the numbers and make it your own.
Yeah, Frog.
Bruce?
I've got a map on the back wall of where I run. You can look at the hexes of the world that I run. But whenever you look at the hex crawl that I'm running the players through, Man, that looks like Flatlands where we're playing at. But whenever Bruce is hex crawling us, these are some knobby ass hills. This is not a lot of. There's not a single thing on that cloth map over there. But Bruce gave us a hotel over here. I didn't know there was a hotel over here. And it's not a well-known setting. It's a published setting, but it's a very much like, if you kill off the mayor of this town, nobody's going to give a shit at this factory where we print the book. All we want to do is make money, make it your own.
Bruce, what'd you have for dinner?
I had 4 eggs in my chicken noodle soup.
I was wondering if we need to give you a Snickers.
Snickers.
Jesus.
No, I was wondering if you actually had like. I was kind of wondering if you actually had like 8 Snickers for dinner.
Or
No.
caffeine.
To be fair, in Bruce's campaign, I have every once in a while I have this mental image that I'm stuck somewhere in Texas, especially when we're nothing out there but hickory. I'm like, or whatever. Mesquite. Yeah. I'm like, okay.
This is scrub. The land is usable after it's been given sod and compost and years of druids loving the soil. Other than that, can't grow shit here. Have fun.
Well, you know what? I just realized that I did not speak on for myself what I use for inspiration.
David, that's true.
So my primary inspiration is the overall sword and sorcery theme, and then I pull different aspects of modern or not modern media that we've all seen, and just mush it together, such like Conan, and don't use the people. Just it's more overarching themes and concepts. So
and feeling.
You feeling. So you got Conan, you've got John Carter of Mars, Cthulhu. I like having all of that mushed together and then rejigger it all and then and see what I get.
You also skipped me on using other people's IPs.
Why would I ask you about using other people's IPs?
Because there are some I would love to use.
I was about to, but I was looking at him like, Shadow, he like makes his own thing all the time. You're a sandbox guy, but you draw things from them, right?
Not only that, I would love to use and play John Carter, Modifius version someday. Mm-hmm. Mutant Chronicles, Bruce is familiar with that. I have run Thieves World, believe it or not, in a Traveler game. I have, Gamma World. That's mm-hmm. kind of not. I can make it my thing, but it's really kind of not. It's Traveler is you can use their universe or you can make your own. But there are a few games out there that I would love to. It's just the problem always is when you're using somebody else's IP, you've got to have players who want to play that IP. Like Conan, you can't swing a dead cat without finding people who'd love to play Conan. Okay, but John Carter, I saw the movie, I'm good. You know what I mean? That's the response you're gonna get. Okay, there are a few IPs out there I would absolutely love to play or Dungeon Master, but for me, it's always like these oddball rarities that, there really aren't a lot of fans of. I know worldwide there are, but I don't want to go searching out there. Anybody want to play John Carter? No, thanks. I'll pass. I'll run something else that I know people will want to play. I'm trying to think of some other IPs that I would play. Those are probably it for the biggies that you'd maybe recognize when it comes to IPs, but it's rough.
Can I comment really quick before we move on? Okay.
No.
We know it won't be quick, but go ahead. Let's hear it, man.
Listening to Max talk about After the Bomb, it kind of got me into a Ninja Turtle cake. I just got done watching the movies. I would love to play in that world. I love that world. I think it'd be interesting to DM. I mean, I don't have a problem playing in other people's IP, but I have to at least know the world well enough to do it. I don't know Afterbomb. I know Ninja Turtles, but Ninja Turtles, I need to learn to. Yeah, it's not the same. John Carter.
It's really Camel World.
Yeah, John Carter sounds interesting, but before my time.
You can always read it, and then it'll be your time.
Yeah, you should read it. You should read everything that Robert Howard did.
That was Edgar Rice Burroughs.
That was Rice Burroughs, my bad. But
yeah,
just still read everything that Robert Howard did. Rice Burroughs, I fuck him. No, it's really good. John Carter of Mars is really good, dude.
You can even get them on audio through free audio through a program called LibriVox. You can listen to all that, and it's way better than that movie was.
Did you see the movie? Did you see the movie, Connell?
Yeah, but it was a movie, so I didn't put much stock into it because it was a movie.
Think about this for a second. He wrote that over 100 years ago. Think about that for a second.
Damn.
Ray guns, flying ships, green Martians, smoking hot women everywhere you look. 100 years ago, all on Mars. Okay, that guy was freaking original. Everything science fiction and fantasy that's ever been famous was maybe just a little bit inspired by it. Whereas Star Wars, Lucas has been on record millions of times saying loved the Mars saga. So many people were inspired by not just John Carter, but Tarzan and a couple other big stories of his 100 years ago.
It's because of the way he told the stories. It's because of the way the type of characters they all were. They were all of a piece. The same kind of dude. Forthright. Yeah. Type A. There's a problem. I'm going to solve it. Save the women. You're the bad guy. I'm going to put my foot in your butt and until it comes out your front side. And these days you don't have heroes like that. They're all weenie.
They're all toxic.
Yeah.
Although that's a great comic book series, Toxic Avengers. Just throwing that out there.
All right. So Shadow and Son, you said you like sandboxing, but you don't do the whole random generator thing to come up with it, right? You just lay it out.
I kind of do before they ever get to the table.
Okay,
I've kind of randomly, I mean, do I actually use dice for every hex? No. But do I randomly, determine what is where when I'm making the world? Yeah, because, it's coming out of my, my thinking neat, and that's all random to begin with. It's not very well organized. It's based on dreams and desires and emotions and all kinds of weird crap, all thrown, mixed up, and, sometimes it comes out coherently. And
sometimes, yeah, I get that.
And I take a blank sheet and I randomly start drawing and doing my thing and coming up with whatever, and that sparks something else. That'll spark something else. And I just, record it and put it down as if I was making a game world for a computer game, and I'm going to just throw it out there and people can go and do whatever they want. And if they bump into that quest and decide to take that quest, it may lead to another quest. It may not. They may decide to go, we're just going to go wander around the world and just kill wandering monsters, and that's all we're ever going to do. You can do that. You can go into a town and try and kill everybody. You might get lucky and succeed. You might end up, on the chopping block. I do all that before they get there. I don't want to waste time rolling dice to see what's there,
That makes sense.
And before a game, I will roll up treasure. I'll make a big, huge list of treasure, and if they find treasure, I'll then pick something from the list. Maybe it'll be randomly. I'll, dab a pencil down and go, oh, they found that. Sometimes it'll be like, you know what? They really need this. I put it on the list. Okay, they found it. Same with the monsters. I'll make up a list of monsters before the game, and, I'll slowly scratch them off, as they bump into monsters. It's the same thing as a random monster table, but, I'm not looking in somebody else's typewritten up list. I'm making up my own list of the monsters I want them to bump into because it's very rare in my game that players will run into trolls more than once in their life. Okay? Because I'm going to go on to the next kind of monster. You know what I mean? The same with
a lot of
giants.
variety.
Yeah, because I want to, a lot of players never get to bump into a wide variety of monsters. So I want them to sort of experience, okay, remember that one time, the one and only time we bumped into a beholder, not the time that we went into a dungeon full of beholders.
Nobody wants that.
No, right. But I want to, give them a nice smorgasbord of cool monsters so that they're not always like, oh, more orcs again, faceless orcs. Okay, they're dead now. What did we find? I want them to ooh and ah over these weird creatures, and that gives me more time to enjoy describing these things and see if they figure it out. See if they've done their homework. Did you read the monster manual as a kid? If I describe something that looks like a cow with a long, giant neck, you know what it is?
Oh, sure.
Okay, a lot of people out there don't. It's a dumb monster, but whatever.
Which is why I stopped reading them as a player, because I wanted eventually I wanted to be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
So what about you, Bruce? Are you more of a sandboxy kind of guy, or more of a be prepared kind of guy, or
I prepare. I will plot out hexes as to what's going to be going on in them. Right now I'm using a module as primary quote unquote inspiration. Actually, a couple of adventure paths I'm smashing together because I don't like the idea of giving the players something that they might have read before, but I do like borrowing and filing up serial numbers. So the players got a two-front war in their face. They have giants from the south, and they have the hobgoblins coming in from somewhere. They don't know where, but the hobgoblins just kind of teleported in and started wreaking havoc. And then here's the giants beating up on what was farmland in the area that they're at. The ground that they're on right now is not exactly good. They're in an area that's been invaded so many times, and the last 2 times they were invaded, the invaders left after salting the ground heavily. That's part of the history of the Lost Lands for those in Old Burgundia. That's just where you are, and you live in an infertile area, so you're going to pay more for things if you want to live here. And the players didn't really seem like they wanted to leave up until recently. The druid finally voiced his opinion like, hey, after we're done with this war, I still want to see the world. Okay, cool. But for my inspiration, like whenever I run a game, I know what's in what hexes. I know what they're going to be facing because I have the main points, already down. I have a group of NPCs that they can bump into if they go off track and they want to get back on. They can use those NPCs to get realigned and back, not railroaded, because can't have a railroad with a hex crawl. But once you get back in the area you're supposed to be in, you will eventually encounter those things because not everybody's there waiting for you to tap them and be like, hey, what do I need from you? Oh, adventurer, I have a side quest for you. Not everybody's doing that. There's people that, they sleep at night. They have a job. They go to this other shop over here for supplies on every 3rd day of the week. And that's, they have a routine. They have their schedule set up. So I consider my game to be the type of game I'm running right now to be me running Daggerfall. If you've ever gotten into that, that's my ideal RPG.
I've heard of Daggerfall.
I'll send you the link for the free download. You can thank me later.
Okay.
And you can enjoy that the way it is, but I know what's in the area, and there's a lot of randomness that's involved. You might encounter somebody that will give you a random quest, but I already know what the idea is behind that random quest. I know the next 5 or 6 or 7 things that need to be done to fill that quest out to its completion, because nothing's ever simple in Daggerfall. That's the one thing I love about it. There's not just a simple quest that you have to go do. This guy's in a dungeon. The dungeon is like 50 acres of you hewing your way through the darkness. Good luck with all your torches. That it's one of my favorite settings. And whenever I look for inspiration, I should add on there, I look at the party. Are they well equipped? Can they deal with somebody that speaks a different language? They can't? Okay, well, I guess I'm going to have to foster a way for them to be able to buy or make a wand of comprehend languages. I need to get them at least enough to where they can function in the world if they're not within the 5 miles they were born in. And that's the other thing that I'm coming across as a DM. But if you're asking me what type of person I am, I prefer sandboxes. I prefer hex crawls. That's my game. That's my jam.
That is cool. All right. So how much time are we spending world building as opposed to playing?
Yes, and.
Huh?
Yes, and. If I'm world building, then I will spend a couple weeks just hammering out the frame of the house. Let's say world building as a house. I will put up the foundation, the wood, the frame of the house. Then as the game is continuing, I'll start adding in insulation, drywall, so forth and so on as the game continues. But I at least need to have the frame up before I'll start running, if that makes sense.
Sure. Mr. Shadow and Sun?
Actually, let me go last because I've got a very it's real simple, and I think everybody wants to hear what everybody else wants to hear.
Bruce, so how much time do you spend on the world building thing before you get your campaign going?
Before I get my campaign going, I'll have the first 2 adventures. I'll have the first 20 hours not scripted out, but I'll have it prepared should they elect to run in the area that I'm willing to run. And that gives me 2 full adventures worth of stuff to do with them. Pathfinder and 3rd Ed D&D, you need about 1 hour to really plot like 3 hours of game time. For 2nd Ed D&D, you needed about 1 hour to do 8 hours of prep of game time. So if by using that, I probably do about 5 hours a week of looking at books and such, and I probably have the next couple of sessions already scripted out as to how I want to have things go if the players follow my clues or such. But if they don't, you want to get off, go hex crawling through the wilderness, hey, go on ahead. It's all there. It's all there for you. You want artifacts? There's artifacts out there. You want super hard bad guys? Hey, there's a couple of those in the area. You're deciding where you go, not me.
Right.
I'm giving you the options for you to go the safest way to level up, if you so choose. That's not up to me.
All righty. Shadow.
It depends. My basic answer is as little time as possible. Okay? Because players are fickle. And in the current environment with certain games barely lasting 6 sessions, why waste the time? Why throw your heart and soul into a game that could just flop and die prematurely on the vine? Okay? Now, if I know that's not going to happen, then I will go all out. Okay? If I have any hope that the game is really going to last a good long time, then I'll put in all the work that I've talked about tonight. But for the most part, especially since I tend to run a lot of games where you will go from one planet to another planet and possibly hit 6 planets in a game night, I don't need to make that much up. I need to come up with a name of the planet, if people even know it, or if it isn't just a jumble of numbers, okay, for like a traveler game.
Right.
Or, even in fantasy games, I've run them where people are literally, dimensional portaling to new planets looking for something. Or Amber-esque, where they're traveling through Shadow and opening up different kinds of portals, for those of you who know Amber. But if I'm making a D&D game world, I will start with the bare minimums. You got your town, what they can see, Now, if there's, really well-learned first-level wizards in the party or high-soch, like paladins and knights, those kind of people are going to have a little bit better knowledge of the world. But if you're running a first-level thief and fighters and maybe even a cleric or two, you're probably really not going to know much more than the maybe 1,000 miles away from you tops. If you're really, really lucky, you've heard of these far-off lands. But think of like Tolkien. they didn't know half the names of the places they were about to visit. They'd never heard of them. And chances are your players, unless they have a lot of high intelligence scores in the party, which isn't always the stat people go to, which
Right.
it really should be. And I'm going to make an episode on that later on, why intelligence should always be your highest stat, period. But, you take a piece of graph paper or whatever paper you like to use, and you draw about this much of the world on that paper, and that's about all they're going to know. And if the game progresses and they start finding out things, then you can put it on the map. Otherwise, here's the secret. Most players don't care. I can't tell you how many times players did not know the names of the towns they were in. They didn't know. They didn't care. I'm in a medieval town. Where's the dungeon? Okay, well, we're going to another town. Don't care. Where's the dungeon? They really don't care. You can go to all the trouble you want making this beautiful, great world, and half the players will not care. They'll take it for granted that, that's your job. You better make it interesting, but I'm not going to be interested. Okay? Players are really sometimes shitty people. That's why they're out being murder hobos. Think about it. Okay? You could...
Show me the door to kick in, please.
Yeah, don't put your heart and soul into it all at once. You can do it in slow increments. Otherwise, you're going to get your heart broken by the players that you're trying to entertain. They will literally shit all over your world and think that's winning. They'll think that that's the name of the game. The goal is to tear it up and, oh, you made a kingdom? Well, I'm going to go and assassinate him and take over that kingdom and execute everybody who disagrees with me, because that's the ultimate goal of half the people who are playing. They want to rule when they're done, or they just want to be murder hobos and become super powerful, and they'll figure it out later. Well, damn the consequences. Just give me power, give me gold, give me things to fight, and that's the game for them. That's really an unfortunate fact of this hobby. A lot of the people that are in it, even the people with the best intentions, still do those same crappy things. They'll shit over your world. They'll kill your best NPCs. They'll lay waste to beautiful forests, building their new home. Run the elves out of town. The whole bit. So don't put too much into it all at once. Ease into it. Make sure you got the right players that are gonna appreciate what you've done. Otherwise, you could literally tell them the same name of a town every time they go to the town. It's the same name as the previous town. Half of them won't even realize it.
I've run into those kind of players. We're pretty lucky. We with our group, we're not really. I think we went through our murder hobo phase when we were children, young teens, and eventually just grew out of that kind of play.
Yeah, I think gaming experience starts literally like your characters. In the first levels of gaming, you do all these classic things like the human body does. At a certain point, you hit gaming puberty, then you hit adolescence, and middle age, and if you're lucky, you'll get to be old and gray and have been playing long enough to see this stuff coming and be able to go, when I was young, or whatever, and just avoid that crap, avoid those kinds of situations, and enjoy the hobby that we've all grown to love over all these years, and still come back to it, because there's still room for enjoyment. It's not all burnt out, and every time I hear someone wanting to quit, I'm like, is it the players, or is it something else in life, or is it something else? Because if you spent this much time, playing baseball, you're never going to quit playing baseball or watching baseball or listening to baseball or enjoying it, unless something in baseball itself changes.
Right. All right. So, yeah. So that's pretty much what I wanted to get out for world building. I'm completely on board with the minimum at first. See how it goes, add on as time goes by. I'm also kind of a less is more guy. You don't have to build an entire pantheon with all of its various religious sects and know where they're all at and the names of the high priests. You don't need any of that. You need, you might need to know that there are these cults running around and the name of one, so you can throw it at the PCs if they're looking for one, or if you need one for foil for the PCs. But and you don't need to have a detailed timelined history from the moment that the planet was birthed all the way up until when the PCs were birthed either. You don't need any of that. Highlights. And then you may not even need to have a timeline at all for the planet, not for the world or the country they're living in, until, it seems like they might want to ask about it. So, yeah, less is more to me. Just some highlights, a few jotted down notes, maybe a theme where you are writing down what the kind of overall direction or the type of world that they're on, that you're running, and that only takes a sentence or two, really. And then you can use that to kickstart all the other stuff as long as the players are interested. Because you don't want to catalog, you don't want to have a big mule choker catalog of your world, and the players, don't even explore a couple of pages of it. And they're like, move on. Let's all move on to another thing. You don't want that.
Nope.
I always find with stories, especially if it's a homebrew story, if having, I don't know what the best example would be. Oh yeah, having that Phil Coulson from the original the Avenger movie. I'm just using this as an example because that's the best one I could think of. Is you have a character, an NPC that is well loved by the group, but the group isn't completely gelled together, so that the campaign could very much fall apart within the first 2 pages. Then you have their most loved NPC slaughtered horribly, and it just gels the group. Okay, we were going to go take care of the problem. We could not save him, but we will avenge him. And if you can have that gelling moment, it doesn't have to be that way, but I find it works the best. Kill somebody's dog or whatever, or whatever. Yeah, but the moment you can have the party gel, they're more likely to, your campaign will just take off to the races.
That's easy to do when you know the players pretty well and what kind of characters they have.
Right.
I usually play good aligned characters. So all you have to do is have some evil, nefarious thing happening, and I jump right in. So there's kidnapped kids, or the princess has been stolen or kidnapped, or whatever. Any of the fairly typical things you could do to string along a PC, I'm pretty much on board, and I jump right in as a player.
Right.
The way I think of, and so because that's how I think, that's how I'm probably going to put scenarios out there. So one that I think would work really well is you go to town, you buy some stuff, you have some drinks with some locals, maybe make some friends, you go do something, come back, the whole town's been burned down, and there's some orcs in the distance that look like they're carrying off the spoils. What do?
You go rescue the town. You go rescue the town. That's what you do. There's no questions about it.
Especially if there's some indication there's some folks still alive. Orcs are well known to eat, so you don't want you don't want your local bartender to become food. No. So I think it's pretty easy to get, depending on the group of players that you have. It should be fairly easy for you to get them motivated to do a thing. You don't have to railroad them, though. But that's just something that I was thinking of one day. I'm just going to, burn this down to the ground and say, what do you do now? Just to see what happens. Anyway, so DM, the world building is up to the DM. You don't build your entire world before you start your game. Draw inspiration from the things that you know and like. I would add to that. You probably, if you're going to use like current events, one, I would say don't. I would say maybe draw some inspiration perhaps, but don't hit your players over the head with current events, please. That's a sure way to get your table flipped over and nobody comes back. So
we're talking to you, Colin.
I don't use current events. I use history. History is not current. If it happened during the time of Roman, then it's the Roman Empire, if not before. It's not current.
Right. So you have a decaying empire.
Right.
Or you have an empire that's on the move, like the Romans when they were trying to conquer everything. Sure. Right. So I think what I'm going to do now is go around the group, and you can pimp your stuff. Keep your clothes on, please. Not that kind of pimping your stuff.
I was about to say, let me go get some baby powder.
So we'll start with Connell. Tell people about you and where they can find you on the interwebs.
Well, as the title says underneath my ugly mug, my name is Connell, the Cigar DM. You can find me here on YouTube. Most Wednesdays at Gatekeepers, most Thursdays at Table Breakers, Friday hanging out with Max. Every other Saturday, I think I'm going to continue doing the conversation with the vet about RPG. I know Joe from Biggus Geekus is one of the people I plan on having, so is Bruce and Baron and a few other people. And Sunday, you can find me and the gentleman underneath me reviewing movies, talking about that week's game, talking about books, keeping in the realm of all things geeky and nerdy, where it's safe for everybody to be at. And that's what I got going on.
All right, Connell. Shadow.
A lot of what he just said. Before I do that, really, really good show tonight, Joe. I really like the way you do things, but
thank you.
Like Connell said, he and I and Bruce, we all hang out over here at Gatekeepers and Table Breakers, and then over with Max on Friday nights. You'll always find all of us doing those things. Today, I put out a Gamma World 3rd edition video. If you're interested in Gamma World, check it out. If you're not, check it out anyways. Thursday, the little guy, my son, that's where the sun comes from. He and I will be making a miniature terrain piece to go with those of you who use miniatures. We make a lot of terrain and monsters out of basically junk and garbage you might otherwise throw away. Sometimes we buy specialty items at the craft store, like these little dowel rods. We're going to be using these in an upcoming craft. Actually, not this one, but a thicker one. But sometimes specialty craft items, nothing expensive. We're cheap when it comes to making crafts. We try to make things, as cheap as possible, but that look good. And then on Friday, I will be doing another Arduin review because I'm always going to pimp Arduin because that's my secret weapon. You can hear more about that on my Friday videos. Saturday, I will be hanging out with Bruce and Connell in Bruce's Mathfinder game. Looking forward to it because I've been jonesing for 2 weeks now, waiting to kill some more giants and trolls, and we've been having a blast. And then Sunday, like Connell said, we will be reviewing actually Worldbuilding this weekend, and maybe talking about other stuff. But we're gonna my son Connell and I will all be talking about Worldbuilding more in depth for those of you who've never done it before, because my son's going to be there, and I want to teach him how to build his own world, because he builds worlds for things other than actual RPGs. He does some side projects, and he's working on things and trying to make movies and stories. So I'm basically it's gonna be a little workshop on how to actually do it. The little steps and things you can do if you really want to actually make a world, regardless of whether people are actually going to explore it all. I'm going to go over some of the things I've learned to make it easy, because unless you want to spend, like some people we know, 10 years on the same world and just write every little detail down, there's a lot of things you can just skip over.
Oh, sure.
But that's what I got going for this week. And then next week we will rinse and repeat and do more of the same stuff, because we've got a schedule. So
Gotcha. Go, Bruce. Oh, before you go, I only had time for this one, and I wasn't sure who was going to show up.
Cool. Thank you.
So there's Bruce's channel there here on YouTube.
yeah, go out there and sub like crazy to him. Take your wife's phone and sub to him. Take your kid's phone when they're not looking, sub to him. All the sneaky stuff. Let's get him up to 1,000, guys. And then you can work on us. When you're done with that, then come give us some love.
Go ahead, Bruce.
I think you guys are shortening yourselves. You guys got a lot more talent. You guys put a lot more of your talent in your YouTube channel than I put in mine. I would like to say that if you don't mind hearing a guy do an occasional J.K. Simmons yelling voice, go on ahead, come over to my channel and sub, because I do the J.K. Simmons yelling voice quite a bit. I do a lot of miniature painting and such, but I think when it comes to gaming, no matter who you are, plan for what accordingly you're doing. So, don't go bigger than the county the players are starting in. All right, let's not try to map out every little piece of that world. You just got to get the butts in the seats, and once you get the butts in the seats, then you can start working from there. And as they stay in the seats, you can grow the world as you see fit. But my channel, if you like what I do, I'm here with everybody that does Gatekeepers on Wednesday night. On Thursdays, me and Garrett both host on our respective channels, our Table Breakers. On Friday, you'll find me at the Chill Stream, drinking leisurely. And then every other Saturday, I run a game of Mathfinder, and that'll get even more exponentially fun as I release my own system. Every Sunday, I'm with a friend of mine on an art channel, Machini Draws, and we do a really good show on Sundays for a few hours in the afternoon. And then that's the start of the week. And did
I miss Bruce? Did I miss you talking about you and Janet?
Monday night we were talking about Big Trouble in Little China. So if you weren't there for Monday, it's on her Discord.
Okay, well, definitely throw her some love too. Her channel's hysterical.
Yeah, she's a funny lady. You'd be surprised. The more I discover about her, the more makes sense. I'll just say that. But she's a hoot, and she's my co-host on Mondays. We talk about a movie, and this coming Monday is her pick, and I have brain farted as to what she's going to be wanting us to talk about. But I know it's going to be a good film, because we were both talking about it at the end of the last video where we talked about Big Trouble in Little China. And now that I've said that and ran out of breath, I'll hand it over to Joe. Thank you, Joe, for the time. No
problem. Okay, so yes, as the moniker says here, I am Joe from Biggus Geekus. I and Randy run a weekly YouTube channel, a live stream on YouTube. Don't do a whole lot besides that. Occasionally host Gatekeepers, sometimes show up on Friday. Every once in a while, hang out for Table Breakers or on Bruce's Sunday paint thing. I did put out a solo video last week about the drive-through issue that I'm sure everybody here is aware of. It's gotten a lot of views for my channel. And
have you started work on getting our own free speech drive-through set up?
Yeah, it's slow going because I have a day job, but yes.
Okay, cool.
I have. There's nothing to really talk about. It's just the very bare beginnings. So that is a project I'm working on. Randy and I are both working on a project, an adventure we want to release. We're not sure whether we're going to ask for pay on it, or whether it's going to be free or not, how long it's going to be. We just have a title and a few ideas. So hopefully we can get that banged out by the end of the year. But also expect us to have some more non-live, some pre-recorded videos going forward. You have something else there, Shadow?
Yeah. Did I hear right about something like an alternative to the big monopoly out there right now?
I am making a proof of concept. If
Keep
that
me
works,
posted on that.
okay. I've got
I'm very interested.
I have a Discord channel on our Discord, on the Biggus geekus Discord. There's a channel to it. There's only a couple of posts. So so far we've got one fellow who says he will move all of his material over once it's up and running. So from drive-through. So I'm only doing a proof of concept, more of a beta thing, unless I can get some financial backing, because it will take some money. So we'll see how it works out.
That's actually what I want you to talk to me about later.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you can find Biggus geekus, of course, here on YouTube. We published the audio of our live stream to podcast. And like I said, we're looking at putting more pre-recorded videos out. They seem to have bumped our membership up a bit. So we'll do more of that. Hopefully we can get up to at least the 500 mark. 250, we're at a little over 200 right now. At 250, we're going to do a giveaway. Hopefully that happens fairly soon. So thanks to everyone who showed up here. Thank you, Connell, Shadow, and Bruce for helping me out getting this Gatekeepers thing done today. And thank you for everyone showing up in the chat and giving me some extra things to talk about. So that being said, is there anything else anybody wants to put out before I hit the end broadcast button?
Have a great week, everybody, and a better weekend.
That sounds good advice.
Thank you, sir.
All righty, everyone, have a good weekend, or have a good evening.